What's up, Jim?
What's happening, buddy? Good morning.
Yeah, episode 3. It's August 14th today.
Hard to believe it's been 3 weeks, man. This is, I think, the earliest that we've recorded your time anyways. You look more spry than me. I'm still waking up, even though I've been up for 4 hours. But, middle of August.
I just got home from taking Hudson to school. It's the second week of TK. So we've been up.
Does it always start this early?
7:30. Yeah, he starts. Well, I don't know. It seems like it. I mean, it seems early, but yeah.
I mean, I feel like when we were kids, it was always like August 26th rings as the day, like before Labor Day weekend. And it seems like I've been hearing more and more people that are like their kids are already started school. I know like our school doesn't start for a couple of weeks, but
yeah, he started on Thursday. So
how's he been doing with it?
Good. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, mornings are a little rough for him when we drop him off, but today was especially tough because it's the second week. So last week it was Thursday, Friday, and the first day we got to walk in, see his classroom, meet his teacher and everything. And then the next day they all lined up at the gate and then they took him in. And then today he had to walk from the main, like the front gate all inside the school, inside the gate, but he had to walk from the gate all the way to his classroom by himself.
Dang.
So it's especially hard today, I think, for him, but also my wife. So it's tough. But
I forget it's been a long time. With my oldest being 13, I don't remember. School feels just like a formality now. You know what I mean? And the young kids just follow the old ones. I mean, they all hop on the bus in front of my house. All 4 of them do. Well, I guess my oldest takes a different bus earlier, but the other one's just like it ducks in a row. Walk down there, and hopefully my youngest starts pre-K here in a couple of weeks. We're still waiting to hear if she got into the program or not. So it's like, I was just talking with my wife about that. It's like, I mean, we kind of got to know, you know what I mean? It's like contingency plans. I mean, at this point it's too late to pivot at all, but what can you do? Is he going to like a public school or is it private or what?
It's a public school in our neighborhood. But it's cool because my buddy Andrew, who I used to work with, his mom's actually the preschool teacher there. Nice. So he's going to have an in kind of there. And then my neighbor, Dave, who actually, funny story, I'll try and go through it real quick. So my buddy, Dave, I got a DM one day on Instagram. This was a few years ago. And he was like, hey, I see this picture of this kid who looks familiar on my feed. And he's like, I don't follow really any like friends or family or anything. I just follow people who make cool shit. And he's like, it was weird. And I recognized the kid. I recognized the street. And you're his dad. And I've been following you for years. And I had no idea that it was you. And him and I had run into each other countless times in the front yard and walking and families because our kids are the same age. And his kid's actually in Hudson's class. But
dude, it was wild. Weird.
It's crazy because, we had talked so many times before that, but we never talked about like work or the shop or anything. He's got a Tormach in his garage, and he had one in there the whole time. So he's out tinkering all the time. He comes over all the time. So he was actually out here last night, stopped by, and I was out here till probably 10:30 last night working on some stuff. And he ended up stopping by. He'll walk around and just go make his rounds and say hi to all the dads and see who's working on what. But it was cool.
That's some small world shit, man. I mean, honestly, so that happens here in Erie. I mean, everybody knows everybody. It's a town of 100,000 in the city. The greater area is like 250,000. But like that, like 7 ways to Kevin Bacon. It's a small world shit happens all the time here. I can't believe that like the chances of that happening in Anaheim. You know what I mean? Like, what are the chances?
Yeah, it was so wild. And our kids are not too far apart in age. So they're actually going to the school together. It's their first year at this school together.
Sweet, man.
So they both ended up getting into the DLI program, that dual language immersion. So it's like 90% Spanish. And my kid speaks almost no Spanish at all. So it's actually pretty cool for him. He enjoys it and he's learning a lot. So,
I mean, is that like a thing where like they become bilingual through school, stuff like that?
That's essentially what it's for. Yeah. They're basically just
throwing
him into the wolves. Yeah. And so every year it's like TK, I think is 90% Spanish. And then every year it drops off like 10%. And then at the end, it's mostly English, but
okay.
So it's pretty cool.
Sweet, man. What else did you get into this last week? It's Monday. So, I mean, I was out of the loop this weekend, but did you get to working on anything you're hoping to work on or?
Yeah. So last week, I finished up all those rails that I was working on. I think that was like Tuesday or Wednesday. Anyways, delivered all that stuff. I made some extras. I basically just ran out all the bars that I had, dropped all that stuff off to him. And then I got into, we were talking about making that inspection fixture. So I ended up making that. I made that whole thing.
Yeah, actually, I saw that picture, man. That looks super clean.
Yeah, so I posted a bunch of pictures on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. I think realistically, this indicator is going to be way too fine. It's a 20 millionths Mars Super Mess. So there's only 2 thou total range on it, which is way too tight for the amount of motion that's going to be out at the tip. So I'm most likely going to swap it out. But I made one of these clamps with a 8mm bore on it, and then I made another one with a 3/8, so I can stick any of my other drop indicators, and I'll just probably swap them.
Nice.
But it's cool. So it locates on this flat face is your primary, and then pivot for the secondary, and then it essentially you might be able to see it. There's some rotation here, so it rotates until it hits the stop pin. Backwards. So it rotates until it hits the stop pin, which is the tertiary. And I think you can see it a little bit in there. So yeah. So that's basically just going to simulate the assembled position and then measure all the way out here. And I took a dimension from this face. This is exactly 2 inches across. So basically 1 inch from the bottom to the pivot. And then I know from the pivot to the tangency point up here is 1 inch from the bottom. It's 1 inch, 450 thou. So I'm just going to make a stack of like a gauge block stack, put this on the granite plate, zero the indicator on there, and then I can just put a blade on it. I'll be able to see exactly how much is out there.
Do you have to, does it have enough travel for you to like lift it up to put the blade on to clear the stop pin?
I can't swing it up because it'll hit the clamp, unfortunately, because this is the closed position. So essentially it's going to actually be, this way, open position on this side. It doesn't have enough clearance to travel, but I can just pull the pivot out. So the stop pin the stop pin's fairly snug in there. It's not a press fit, but the pivot comes right out, and then the blade will come right off. So
nice. That's
there's all that. So yeah, it worked out really well. I just interpolated the bores, walked those in, and got them real snug on the pivot, the actual pivots that I'm going to use, and the actual stop pins that I'm going to use. So that worked out cool. I put some engraving and stuff on it. It's like total overkill, but
got to put all the touches. That's the first thing I noticed when I saw the pictures. I was like, oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's so easy. Just writing the text in Fusion, you don't have to explode it or anything. You just select the whole thing and it'll grab everything. So I have so many templates for doing engraving and the logo and all that.
Dude, honestly, like especially if you start to like make more models or like have different sizes, like or revisions, like just in machine engraving it while it's in there. I mean, I do that to all my jaw. I engrave all my jaws. I engrave all my fixtures because like you think you'll know, but when you start rooting through stuff, like being able to quickly look at a glance and like know exactly what that is like such a time saver.
Yeah, it helps a lot. I have so many jaws and fixtures and stuff in storage on the other side of the garage. And I know what most of it is, but there are some where it's like, what angle was that? Like for my old jaws that I would do primaries on. I would surface the jaws. I have a master fixture that's parallel. It's all square, but I would surface the soft jaws. And I would take the master fixture over.
How would you establish a Z height if you were tipping?
I have, so Chief Bub on Instagram.
Yep.
He made a little, I'm 99% sure it was him. I think it was. So he made a wire EDM little fixture. It's basically it's a shelf. It's kind of like a chair.
So it sits on that angled corner and then it has a flat surface at a known height and you can just probe it.
It's got a radius.
Oh,
so it has, I think it's a 1/2 inch diameter on there, and the corner of it goes dead nuts center on the radius. So you can sweep the top. You can find the high point on it and get the top, and then you can find the front of it and get the face of it. And then the fixture has a machined edge on the side. So my X is just on the side, and then Z would be on the top minus the radius, and Y
is just the front of the blade.
Yep. So on the actual radius. So it was actually the corner of the fixture. Somewhere out here, but like essentially if this was kicked up on an angle, I would have my XYZ corner up here, and then the blade would sit on the face, for doing a primary, like, kicked up on an angle like that. So that was just for finding that. I'm probably going to do something different, just because the spindle probe's in here. So but all that stuff's actually going to be built into the fixture because I'm going to have one main fixture for the datum stuff. That was really my general fixture that was always moving around. And then swedges would get kicked forward. So the blades are actually tipping towards you. And then a 1/2 inch end mill would hit the swedges that way instead of surfacing them.
Do you have your, I don't know if you want to share it, but do you have your master fixture in Fusion that you can show on the screen for people that are watching on YouTube?
Yeah, for sure. And let me see if I can present this because we've done it a little bit here. So I'll turn all this stuff on right now, window, and then Fusion. For whatever reason, I don't know if this is my graphics card or what, it creates this kind of big black block right here. And then also try not to mind too much on my history here. This is a file from 2017 that's been completely hacked together, and I'm worried about going all the way back and fixing all this stuff because I think it's going to just build this whole thing all the way down.
Anybody that's ever like made something conceptually from scratch and revised it 10 times knows that like the dependencies that you develop when you're doing things down and dirty, like you're never going to be able to clean that tree up. It's always going to be a mess. Like it is what it is.
Yeah. And since I made this, after this, like I've always tried to be really good. If I know someone is going to be going into a file that I'm working on, I make sure all my names are good. I make sure my history is all good. But this one has just been like there's so many revisions. Like, I mean, this one's 84 in Fusion, which isn't really that high. I have some that are in the hundreds, but this one has all of my tool paths from when I made that one that I sent you for the frames and everything. So I'm super hesitant to just turn this off and kill it all and restart it. I might just actually save some of this out because this ended up being like, I'll add a bunch of screws in here for a rendering and then I'll leave them in there. I'm like, oh, well, shit, they're already in there. So I might as well leave them. But so this is basically, I have never showed this anywhere publicly, but this is basically the full model for the datum. Aside from the inset lock, I got to finish up some of the details here. But the whole thing is going to essentially look like this. So full length backspacer, quote unquote backspacer, all the way to the edge, or all the way to the front, which just clears a blade. And then in the closed position, all of this is completely closed. So that's why
awesome.
That's why all this stuff is so critical to make sure everything is straight and centered and flat and parallel and everything. So closed position there, and then closed position up here. It's almost entirely closed except for where the lock face is. So I think.
What are your clearances on the angles in the back for the blade? Like, do you have 10 thousandths, 15 thousandths of clearance?
Everything's 10. I basically offset all of the blade surfaces by 10 thou. So this is pretty much as far as I could take it out comfortably. I put a little radius here so you're not swiping your finger, but this doesn't have a flipper tab on it. When I originally made this, all I need to do is just take this surface and pull it out. I think it was like 3/16 or so, and it creates a perfect little flipper tab. But I don't want to leave this gap on here in case I do flipper tabs. I may just do a separate set of frames, but having a flipper tab on here, the original plan was basically make all of the blades the same with a flipper tab on them. And then if I don't want a flipper, I'll just cut it off. I don't want to do that in the hardened state though. And I'm not a huge fan of flippers on here or just in general. Like I have a lot of knives and I end up preferring the windows a lot more than the tabs. So yeah, so there's that. I don't have the contact sets set on this specific blade. It's on the other one, but so there's that. And then if I just I'm going to just turn all this stuff off and I'll show you that fixture. I think I have everything in here. Blade fixture. So here's that. And then blade, stick all this stuff on here.
Because I think that's something that a lot of people get curious about, right? Is like fixture design, manufacturing approach. It's such a nuanced thing. And I've always thought that the way that you approach this stuff has been unique and well thought out and complete. You're like, I always have liked that your fixturing looks just as nice as your completed parts, even if it comes down to your engraving or edge breaking or whatever. So many people in the CNC knife world anyways, their fixtures are pretty down and dirty. Obviously you get some guys when you start to enter a production type state where they have to be more repeatable and interchangeable, etc. But I think that for a lot of guys that are getting like their first Haas or whatever, they almost have like a sacrificial pallet from eBay with some rigged clamps or bolts that are heads are holding on, you know, the edges, and you're getting deflection in the material where it's raising and bowing in the middle, etc. And like they're more or less using their machines as like glorified water jets that are, you know, accurate without kerf, and then still hand working parts, cutting tabs and all that. And they, you know, I think a lot of people don't have the first idea of how to even approach designing a fixture, especially one like this where you have all your operations, right? You have, you know, your bevels on the outside, and you're able to cut your criticals on the inside with clearances. You're able to take your blank with your clamps on the one side, push it up against a known edge. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot to that I think a lot of people don't have the faintest idea how to approach.
I mean, you talk to 10 different machinists and you're going to get 10 answers. And I've gone through a lot of iterations on this stuff, and I may change this again too, but I'm going to start with this one. This is actually kind of one of the goals for this week is to make this fixture. Because I did get all of the blades back from you from heat treat, which I mean, you know, obviously, but I received them. So I have 15 of these blades literally ready to go in this fixture whenever it's done. I have the check fixture ready for the blades, so I'm pretty confident that if they fit on this fixture properly, they're going to fit in the frames properly. But yeah, for fixture design, like I have this very basic, extremely basic general fixture that I have for doing blades. So it's got a 3/16 counter bore in the top, and then there's a tapped hole in the bottom of it, and it just uses precision shoulder bolts. Just low head shoulder bolts on here.
Do you ever find that with the precision shoulder bolts that they're like a softer material and that an Allen key wants to strip them?
Yeah, they suck. Yeah, in general they suck. So what I do, I mean, I have a little Allen that I ended up, not this one, but I basically just cut the L off of it, and then I stick it in a drill with a low torque setting, and then I just basically run them with a Milwaukee drill until it hits a torque. And they do get messed up over time. But overall, I've had more issues with, I actually had some, these all come from McMaster. I've had some that I've gotten that were not even ground. There was just in the bag, random ones in there there was no grinding done on them. So they just straight up didn't fit at all. And then I've also had some other ones that I've left in the fixture overnight, and I went to take them out and the head just popped right off, like the thread of the whole thing. So overall, they're kind of shitty, but they work really well, at least for what I need. So it's a thou total tolerance on them, on the precision ones. So I'll just make sure I measure those, and then I'll make whatever I'm using, like whatever I'm holding down with that, I'll make that size. And then after I can open them up, I can ream them or lap them or whatever. So I don't worry too much about the size because they're pretty consistent. I mean, you just find a bunch that match and go from there. So that's what I use kind of for just kind of down and dirty, blanking stuff out. That's actually what I blanked all of these blades out on, was that specific fixture, because it's not super critical leaving all the stock on there. That it didn't really matter too much as far as like exact location. I ended up measuring from the bore that I'm using for the pivot to the corner and wrote down those numbers. And then in my sketch in Fusion, I matched those numbers so I can just probe that corner. Now it's repeatable.
Nice.
But yeah, so for this fixture here, it's going to basically just be a rectangle blank that drops in, and then the Mighty Bites are going to push it up against the edge. I've got some clearance here, just in case there's any burrs or anything. I might actually do a little dovetail here as well and just clearance this whole thing out. But this should help a little bit. I've had issues where there's like if they shear the material, then there's a raised edge on it. This should help with that a little bit, but also just with chips and stuff, there's some flushing, and my light already died. And then, so this one's really just going to be to do these two holes. That's the only thing I'm even going to do in this fixture. I could do them in a vise. That's usually how I do them. I just drop them in a vise down on parallels or into machine soft jaws, and then do these holes. But this, having one contained thing that I can just drop this whole entire fixture into jaws, is going to be a lot easier for me. So it does the two holes. Then it moves over here. It holds on the two holes. And this one, I'm most likely going to slot this one here, because this one's really just the tertiary. So I'll create a sketch that's from the center line out, and then just do like probably a 15 or 30 thou slot. So the whole location is not super critical, even though it's going to be accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. You might have to take over for a minute.
Uh-oh.
I'll try and cut that
Okay.
out.
You don't wouldn't worry about it. Hey man, coughing happens, especially when you're talking.
So I'll try and cut that out. So I'll have this one as a slot, which I've done before on fixed blades. And then all the location can be really tight off of the pivot hole as your secondary. You
Got some alley cats brawling, dude.
Oh, good. Anyways. And then, so it's a primary down on the face, and then secondary for the bore, and then tertiary for this tab hole. So this one here will do all of the roughing for the stop pin track, rough out the window, rough out the profile. I've gone back and forth on whether I want a water jet or not. I don't like the cost of water jet, and the quality is typically sucks too. And with how fast it is to rough this stuff out with like a 1/4 inch end mill, it's not worth it, in my opinion, to really buy water jet blanks, because it's way easier to just fixture on a straight edge. And then I could do any size or shape or have the creativity to do whatever on that.
Yeah, man. I mean, you look at, Yoni, for example. I mean, he just buys like ground bars that are like, because I buy, 24 by 36 inch sheets, have blanks jetted out. And he's kind of like, fuck that. I'm just going to buy 2-inch wide bars. I don't really care about loss. I care about repeatability of like the process. And he just blanks them out. You could more or less buy stuff like that, whack it to length, and just be good to go. I mean,
exactly. That's the plan. So this one here, I think, is 1.5 inches. Most of the time it comes oversized, at least from what I've purchased in the past. I can drop this down to like 1 inch 400. And then I know for sure if I buy 1 inch 500 material, I can just stack a bunch of them in the vise and face them off so they're all consistent.
Yep.
I don't mind. I don't mind qualifying all the material that way, because it'll give
you like both sides of it. I love like having precisionally prepped material because it just takes out all the guesswork. But when I'm going through it, like I wouldn't mind doing it for 15 of them, but to sit there and if you get to a point where you're doing 20, 30, 40, 50 of these a month, and it's like that just becomes a step that I like begin to dread. It's like, how can I eliminate having to do this myself?
For sure. That's kind of where I'm at with my titanium right now. Shit, I'm sorry. The titanium takes so freaking long to cut because it's almost 300 thou, and it's 6 inch by 12 inch. So I'm saw cutting. I have it laying flat to cut through so it gets it real straight. I stood one up, but when I cut it, it just walked a bunch. Yep. So I don't really want to do that. Plus, it's really hard on the blade because it's just slamming on the material 6 inches up, and it's just deflecting.
Yeah, just breaking teeth like crazy, dulling them and breaking them.
So I don't really want to do it that way, but it's taking too long doing it flat. So I might just kind of babysit it and stand them up and walk through them all for all the frames. So last week after I finished this check fixture, I know we had talked about this a bit. I ended up doing it anyways. I cut the pocket clips. So it was just the first op. The second op is going to be a little bit more time consuming because this, like right here, I just had all of this stuff laid out already. Real quick, I kind of jumped around a little bit. This is going to finish all the outside, finish the windows, finish the stop pin tracks and the chamfers. And then this side is basically going to just finish the chamfers on the second side. I was thinking about doing a double angle tool on the bottom to do that and then eliminating this fixture here or this whole spot right here. But double angle tools are a lot more expensive than chamfer tools. They take a little bit more time to dial in. And I don't want to do that on heat treated or the hardened blades.
Yep.
Plus, I may rough this side, but I just don't want to mess too much with having undercut tools on here just because of the cost and time and stuff. This is really simple to just do. You could surface this with a bullnose like we talked about, or get a real nice chamfer tool and hit that. And then the sides are for primaries. So these are kicked up on an angle. The primary is vertical. And then one of the more critical spots on it is the actual plunge where the plunge starts. This is actually what's vertical. So the blade is slightly tipped. It's slightly tipped a little bit because this is an arc. There's a huge arc here and then a tighter arc here. It can't go straight across because then the end mill can't hit this, unless you're also tipping in the fifth axis on the machine. So this is a simple 3-axis fixture. It's doing all of this. This is just a real simple sketch on the side. Did my mouse just die too? No way. I charged my headphones, I charged my lights, I charged all that stuff, but apparently that key light I have to keep plugged in. So this is just a simple rectangle on an angle, and then it's a sweep, a parallel sweep, and then revolve right here for the plunge. I'll dive into some of the CAD at some point, maybe a later episode. And then this side is the same thing. It's just basically mirrored over. So it does the other side. So really, I could just do these 2 holes, and then I could stick it right here and do the primaries. I don't need to do any of these other ones first. I could, yeah, I think my mouse just died. I can stick it onto these fixtures and do the primaries and then do the flat stuff too, which also works. It really doesn't matter what the order is in any of this, as long as this one is done after this one, because it's chamfering, and everything has to be done obviously after this one. So it's very universal. Yeah, so I finished up the check fixture, and then I jumped on the pocket clips. I'm gonna kill this right now because this is,
at this point, progress is progress. I think, you know what I mean. Getting anything done, we're like within a month of, like, I don't know, I'll be leaving a month from today pretty much to head down there. The show's on Sunday the 16th. I'm planning on leaving on Friday the 14th.
It's on 17th. Right?
Is it the 17th?
17th.
I've been saying the 16th this whole time. Oops.
Yeah, I think this Sunday's the 17th. Just so you're not.
No, you're probably right. Either way, I'll be leaving on Friday. That's the bottom line.
Are you gonna drive?
Oh yeah, it's not far for me. Yeah, you're right. Sunday the 17th. Yeah, it's only like 5 hours for me. So there's not a whole lot of shows that I can drive to. Kentucky is like 6 hours. It's in Lexington in December. I've driven to Blade before, but that's like a 12-hour drive. And so, yeah, I'm taking full advantage of being able to drive to this one, because I actually did just confirm I'm going to be flying to LA actually in November for the California Custom Knife Show and Friday Night Blade Affair. So I'll be out there that way. So definitely driving for this one. It's also nice not having to check a bag with knives and all the rigmarole that you go through, you know.
That's what I'm sketched out about. I mean, I'm only bringing, as long as all these are good, I'm only bringing 15, but I'm going to try and bring a bunch of slingshots and some other stuff too. And I'm just like sweating, checking it and shipping it and everything. And
the cheat code is that everybody says, man, is just check a firearm.
Yep. And that's kind of what I'm doing too. I mean, just do that. And then you have to check it in. You have to sign it out. You have to lock it with your own lock that TSA can't open. So yeah, it's definitely a cheat code, something that I'm thinking about too. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to just pack everything in my Pelican case that I used to use for doing all my service stuff when I was at Yamazen. So
that'll work out good. Yeah, I was surprised at how cheap plane tickets are into LAX. Like it's like $175 for me to fly out. Meanwhile, I'm in a wedding in Montana in the middle of October, and that's like an $800 plane ticket. You know, and it's like, I guess it matters where you're going at the end of the day. The volume in and out of Southern California is just high. But yeah, it sounds like you had a good week. I mean, I think you have getting that fixture off the ground this week is good. Pocket clips making progress is good. Stock cutting material, good.
Yeah, the pocket clip stuff, I did it because I didn't have really any time out here this weekend. And when I did, it was real minimal. We were out at birthday parties and stuff. So this, I could just basically, it was a very simple program. Like I already had most of this stuff done anyways. So I saw cut 3 pieces. It was just a couple cuts and then throw it in on the Talon jaws. There's no special fixturing or anything. And it's tools that I already have in there. So I literally just programmed it and went inside. I came back out. I came back out and I swapped it. And then these literally, this is like an hour and change, hour and a half. But it's surfacing with an 1/8 inch ball. There's some radii and stuff in there that are pretty tight. And so it's basically, I'll send you some pictures. I'll probably post a couple pictures today or sometime this week. But once it's done, then I do these slots through it. It just snaps apart. So they literally just snap right off. Like I've got a couple here so it makes it really easy. They just snap apart and then I can drop these down into jaws. I was going to put these into soft jaws because on the original ones, I didn't have this huge chamfer on here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see any of it, but there's a big chamfer on the sides now. So I added that.
Looks nice.
There's still thanks. There's still profile around the whole thing. So I should be able to grab in soft jaws just like that. Grab all the way to the top, and then just basically deck off the carrier and chamfer it, and do the counterbore here, with chamfers for the pivot. It's using
Easy
a pivot
mode.
head, like a 1/4 inch diameter. It's easy. So this wasn't a lot of hands-on time. It was really just I need to try and utilize some time out here, even though I'm not going to be out here. And this was really easy. It's a lot easier to just knock these out than try and dial in frames and stuff. So,
I mean, it decreases the anxiety whenever you have anything going. You know what I mean? You know, it feels like you're making some kind of progress, or like you at least have a plan, even if it's not as optimal as maybe you would hope. I mean, again, time is time, so you save some
for sure. And I could focus this week on doing frames or the blades. So
either way, I mean, you got your month. I mean, I'm starting to plan my schedule now. I'm wrapping up the Mac project for August, prepping to ship everything tomorrow. I just have a handful of components left to make today. And then I'm getting my stuff assembled, and then I'm switching gears over to, you know, September Mac stuff in a limited fashion, and prepping for the show. So all of my material composites that I ordered for frames for the show are here, and trying to plan out fancy build stuff. I actually have a bunch of magnet cut stuff coming back from Double Disc today, like 17 transient blades and a bunch of other parts. They emailed me on Friday and said that stuff was shipping. So I'll be able to kind of start to allocate my my parts list and figure out what I need to make. But it's, you know, this month is going to peel off fast. You know, we got to take advantage of every day that we can. That's for sure. I was talking yesterday with a buddy of mine who does construction, and, you know, got behind on something. And it's just funny how when you're dedicatedly working every day, you know, a month can peel off like a week. You know, it's it's insane, the passage of time. But yeah, I had a good week last night. A good week last week. I ended up getting everything done that I expected to. Right now, I'm literally finishing up the last of the Mac Ultimatum blades, and then all the components for those are done. And I have to do the pocket clips for the Mac Stray, and then that's it. I'm done with everything for this month. So I'm going to try and knock that stuff out today. I can even run pocket clips tomorrow while I'm assembling, because it's not a part of the component assembly that I actually do. So, and that's like a nice, like 20-minute or, you know, program or whatever for completed parts and jaws. So that's an easy one to keep running while I'm sizing hardware and putting stuff together. So I may just end up doing that. And yeah, I'm actually heading out of town this weekend. A buddy of mine, my buddy I'm his best man, and his wedding is coming in. We're going his bachelor party / like our bro camp weekend that we do every year. So he's flying in with a buddy. His dad and his brother are driving up from Pittsburgh area. And we got like 10 guys that are going to be rolling out to camp for 3.5 days. And then his fiance is actually flying in from Montana to his hometown, which is like an hour south of here. So on Sunday afternoon, I'm going to run down there and meet his fiance. So I'm not meeting her, 2 days before their wedding for the first time. So, after pretty much Wednesday, I'm out of commission for the rest of the week. So really trying to jam on the stuff that I have sitting here, so I'm not feeling anxious, like having not got something done when I'm obligated to head out of time. So, pretty simple week for me. Hopefully you are a little more productive than I'll be drinking, beers and sitting in the sun for 4 days.
No, it sounds good. I haven't been camping since like 2017.
Really?
That was the last time I camped. And the last time, I think it was 17. And we went out, camped, shot, and there's a river a couple hours north. It's pretty sweet. So definitely need to do that.
This would hardly be considered camping, I guess. My family's got a place. My grandpa owns a spot. It's like 50 acres right on the Pennsylvania, New York state line. We're on the Pennsylvania side of the state line, but it is on State Line Road. And they got a small house on there with like an upstairs bunk room that has, 10 beds in it. So we have all the amenities to be able to shower and stuff. It's rustic, but it's comfortable. And, we're not pitching. Some guys maybe will pitch tents, but, that's not my bag. I like a bed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's how we always do it with the tent. We're just doing like straight primitive camping.
Yeah, thanks. I guess you can call it glamping. Glamping is what I like to do.
But, bring a shovel and dog, and so.
Sweet, man. So, I guess that kind of covers what we got into this last week. Did you want to pop in and pick a couple more questions to kind of chat about?
Yeah, we could check some out. I didn't post anything this week about it because it's, it is kind of a lot of work, which I kind of figured was going to happen. it's definitely.
I guess the one you actually kind of touched base on a little bit, I guess, for beginner palette and fixture systems, what are there some philosophy behind the different schools of thought? I think a lot of it has to do with what you're prepared to spend, you know, because like for you have a few 6-inch Kurt vices and like you want to make fixtures that you can hold in your jaws so that it's in and out, you know, as where I'm running Pearson pallet system and orange vices, and you know, getting into any new work holding system is just expensive, you know, so you really have to think about, you know, not just what's good for this job, but how do I want to run everything going forward? And what's going to be the most versatile for me? I think in a lot of ways, the way you're doing it, you know, having regular conventional vices that you can do vice jobs on, but that are high enough quality that like to be able to grip on a piece of square aluminum and like accurately locate a fixture, you know, whether it's flatness or whatever. Like, I think that's a pretty versatile way to do it. I know a lot of guys, it's really not that much different than, I think like having the original like orange vices that had their dovetail pallets. I mean, more or less those dovetail pallets are just aluminum blocks being held in the vice just a little bit more efficiently, you know, and there are a lot of more options popping out on the market right now. And I think that the other thing that people have to consider is just the work envelope that they have to work with. You know what I mean? Like with a lot of people buying these smaller Haas machines or Tormachs, you know, I think you have 12 by 16 in like a regular mini mill. It's like in X, I mean, you can maybe fit one vice and one mini pallet system at most, you know? And so I think that, you know, those schools of thought just have to revolve around what's practical for what you have and what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Like right now I'm trying to keep everything real tight just because I'm not selling any of these yet. So trying to use what I have, but I got the Kurt vices when I got the Haas. I like them. I really do like the Kurtz. I got rid of all of my orange stuff, and I like these single station Kurtz. They're very universal, and they're cheap too. I mean, they were like $700, $600 or $700 each.
What do you have? What is it? The DX6? Is that what it's called?
They're the newest DX6s. So the rear fixed jaw is actually cast. It's a single piece cast. So the bed and the rear fixed jaw, not the actual jaw plate itself, but the jaw carrier isn't.
Nice. So it doesn't ride on the carrier screw.
Yeah, it's not bolted like all the old ones you see. They're bolt from the bottom or they were bolted from the top, or some are located from pins. And if they're not really tight, things tend to move around. So that's an issue that some of these, like some vices that are like very universal, they're locating on pins, but things moved. Or they move around a little bit, or
over time they can get clapped out, as where you don't have to worry about that anymore.
I don't have to worry about that at all. It's all single piece. They revised these DX6s a lot to where there's a lot of chip evacuation in the bottom. So I've had them in here almost a year and I've never had to take them apart. You literally just hose on the machine and just blast through all around the screw and through the casting, and all the chips just flush right out. So there's no
now that you bought those with the Haas, because you were kind of doing everything. But if you were to move to a production type of workflow for the datum, what do you think would be your ideal setup in the VF2 if you were still just going to have one machine?
I think I'm still going to keep these vices in here. The only thing that I would want to change is maybe getting the newest Kurt dual stations. I forget the new name. They haven't really like released. I haven't seen anybody have them yet. But they're dual stations. They have integrated Carve Smart. Kurt bought Carve Smart.
Oh, okay.
So they have the actual Carve Smart integrated into the jaws. Yeah, you can run them as single station, dual station. They look really nice. So if anything changes, I'll probably just end up getting those. But for now, the single stations work great. And then just building these little pallets that I can drop into either a machine set of jaws or parallels with like a parallel keeper kind of thing. So it's real universal, but still doing slide work and still occasionally doing some job shop stuff if it makes sense or it fits. So I want to have this as universal as possible in here. I mean, that was kind of one reason with going with the VF2 YT versus something like a Speedio. I mean, obviously cost is a huge concern. This is noticeably cheaper than a Speedio, but also this has a 40 taper on it. 30 taper is great, but there are obvious limitations to it. So I wanted really to just have a truck versus like a nice little sports
Sports car
kind of thing. So this is, for me personally, this is a lot more universal machine. Even though Speedio's great, they make great kind of job shop machines if you're doing the right parts. Doing knife parts are perfect for that, but doing some of these huge, not huge, but for me, big hog outs, where you got like a 3.5 inch or 4 inch length of cut with a 3/4 inch end mill. I'm personally not going to want to do that on a Speedio.
I don't think most people do. I mean, unless your name's Joe Kozlowski making giant parts in his Speedio. The jobs he takes on, and sometimes I'm like, I can't even believe. I mean, he likes to challenge himself, and one thing you can say about him is he always wins, man. He's bullheaded and he'll put the time in and he figures it out. But some of the stuff that he sends me pictures of that he's working on, I'm just like, yeah, that would have been a hard pass for me.
Yeah, I've got no interest in that. There's little stuff that still comes in here where it's like, hey, can you do this for me? And I know I can knock it out easy, but getting on the knife stuff, I remember how much I enjoy doing this stuff and working on my own stuff and revising and dialing in my own process. I don't want to just do that from scratch every time for a new job, even though it's fun, you learn a lot. I don't enjoy it at all anymore.
I mean, when you made a career out of doing it that way, I think about it all the time. I've done so much prototyping, so many one-off parts, and like, there are days where you just like, you want to be busy, but a lot of the times, like, I don't have any interest in going back and doing that. It's just a lot of effort for like nominal or marginal return. It's really not getting your money back out of it for the time you're spending, or the brain power, like I factor that in a lot these days, which is like, if I have a lot of consecutive days of heavy thinking out here, like it affects how much of myself I can give to my family or the people outside of here. And like some days I just want to come in and like do what I've spent a lot of time getting dialed in so that I can be the best version of myself when I'm outside of the shop. It takes a very special person to be able to be cognizant of, in both of those situations and be excellent. And I am not that guy. I for sure leave here tapped and they get the brunt of it on the outside, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough balance for sure. I mean, that's definitely what's nice about not going to like a day job anymore. Just coming out here, and like you said, it's nice because we're here with the family, but it's also tough sometimes because we're here with the family. So there's a lot of distractions, but I think the reward is definitely worth it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a doubt in my mind that it is. But yeah, so I guess what's another one we can chat about here? I guess you could talk about just the basic, do you find value in the trade schools for machining? Is there enough information out there? I mean, I think that there's a big shift right now back to like the blue collar way of life in general, with the cost of higher education being so ridiculous, and people are becoming aware of what that debt ceiling looks like for them in their adult life. It's something that I think 20 years ago when we were getting out of high school, that like none of that stuff was ever talked about with us. And so you're seeing people just want to make money right out of the gate. Being in like a portion of the Rust Belt, and I guess they would consider my area of Pennsylvania like the tool and die capital of the United States. Like at least it was at one time. They have like the vocational schools that kids can go to during high school that I think are really improving with their offerings. Like I went to a public private high school that definitely was focused on highest college admissions possible, and we didn't have anything vocational available to us. But I live right here by in my township. The big high school is literally like 500 yards from me, and they have half a dozen or 10 Haas machines in there now. UMCs and VF2s and ST20Ys. They have like a whole program now dedicated to getting kids hands-on experience with like manufacturing, which is something that I think they just got the grant for those machines in the last few years. And I know there's another like manufacturing lab at the big city high school, which is 10 minutes from here, and they have a similar complement of machines. And then with that, there are some programs, like 2-year associates or like 1-year like courses where they'll teach you basic manual machining and some CNC stuff. But I think for what you pay for that, I think it's $20 or $25 or $30,000 for a year, or 18 months or 2 years or whatever. I don't know if you would agree with me or not. The foundational principles are interesting, but like manufacturing is like anything else becoming so nichey. You know what I mean? Where like I remember during my tool and die apprenticeship, like the desire was that like a person would be so well rounded that they could saw cut the steel, mill the parts up soft in a Bridgeport or on a CNC. Stuff gets heat treated. They could surface grind it. Then they could make the electrodes to do the EDM work, and they could do whatever grinding was necessary, et cetera, start to finish. And like I watched over the nearly 15 years that I was doing that it's like, no, somewhere in your apprenticeship you find something you're really good at, and you're just going to specialize in that thing. And so I think that like no matter what kind of foundation you're getting from these schools, these programs, like nothing beats an on-the-job apprenticeship if you're able to get something traditional, because like you're going to get the day in and day out training that like you're just not able to get at a trade school. So
yeah, I went to school, like CAD class in high school, and I did that for a while, a couple of years, and then I took a machine shop class at night, and that was all manual machining. It started getting into CNC towards the end, and then I graduated high school, and then I ended up getting a job at an aerospace shop like right out of high school, and I learned more at that shop, I feel like, than I ever did anywhere else, except for maybe a couple shops ago, the big aerospace shop. I learned a lot there. There's really, really good guys there. Plus I was in a different position. I wasn't really doing a lot of operating stuff when I was there. So
you're almost in a position to learn. Like that's the whole reason you were there.
Exactly.
Take what you can and improve.
Yeah, I was actually challenged a lot there. So that was good. But I think now if you're getting into machining, really anything now, it's never been easier to learn something than it is right now. I think you're going to get a lot of really good practical experience working in a good shop with good people, but getting the basics and like learning how to just operate machines and probe and program and use Infusion or whatever. There's so much good information out there now, and YouTube and Saunders and guys like that are actually putting out really good educational content. That stuff did not exist when I was getting into it. So
yeah, certainly not, man. And like even like the like availability of like free good software, you know what I mean? Like wasn't there. I mean, it's been 16 years or whatever since I started, and like, you know, I'm still running Creo now, which is what I ran at my last job, and like it's like base license and like a manufacturing 3-axis manufacturing package, like $4,000 a year. You know, like that's really hard to justify if you're not making money on that. And like I probably should switch over to Fusion. I've just like you did. What were you on? Were you on Gibbs Cam, or what were you on before Fusion?
No, so when I had my shop, when I first started my shop with the Fadal, I was on SurfCam because I was using SurfCam at the mold shop. So I basically just I was using SurfCam and SolidWorks at that point.
I remember that. I remember that summer you had like, you just forced yourself to like transition cold turkey. Like it was like everything I'm doing going forward is in Fusion. And it like 6 months later, you were as proficient as you needed to be. But I remember being so envious of like you just taking the plunge. And that's something that I've wanted to do. Just one, Fusion integrates so well with Haas stuff. You know what I mean? Like I can't probe tool breakage detection, or I can't program tool breakage detection in Creo for the Haas. You know, I can't program probing. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have that like surface level integration that's like built right into that. I mean, they figure like, hey, Fusion, first machine's a Haas, like let's make this easy on you guys. You know, there's small things like that I really wish that I could do, and I really need to bite the bullet and make the transition.
Yeah, there were some really good videos from Lars at Autodesk that he posted, and it was like a 5-part series of like introduction to Fusion and Cam. And I just watched that and I'm like, all this stuff makes sense. It's all the same, really. It's just a different user interface.
That's honestly what it comes down to, right? Is like, if you know what you want it to do and you know how you want it to do it, it's like, okay, well, where are the sequences? What does this program call them? Where are the parameters that I want to change? What does this call them? You know, and then how do I post a program out? You know, It's really not that big of a deal. You know, and even though like on the CAD side, like I've done a bunch of CAD in Fusion, and like, yeah, things maybe rotate a little bit differently or buttons are in different locations, but the same basic principles are there, you know. How do you sketch? How do you sketch? How do you extrude, revolve, sweep, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to inherently be a need for more offerings as far as schooling and training go, just because you're going to have more and more people that as the baby boomers die off and like the traditional apprenticeship path diminishes, people are new to the trade are not going to have the same pathway available to them. You know, like I knew people that introduced me to the idea of an apprenticeship because that's what they did in their generation. But as that falls off, or as those programs diminish, like people are going to have to, I think, go to a school that then funnels them into these jobs, because that's just how people are traditionally used to moving through life. I have to go from high school to another school, and then that place will pretty much place me somewhere that I'm going to then work, which if you don't have that infrastructure in place, like it won't work that way. So I think we will see a rise in training opportunities, but how long that takes, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll see. I think everybody's just going to YouTube University now.
Yeah, no, for sure. The only problem with that is you have to have the capital to buy a piece of equipment and have a place to put it and to be able to use it. You know what I mean? We take for granted that machine tools now are easier to buy than they ever have been, I think. And like, there's more low level offerings than there ever have been too. Like, or you could go the Alex Steingraber route of spending $100,000 on a Speedio and putting it in a shop with no idea what you're doing and making it work. You know, like some people don't have the cojones to do that.
Yeah, but he's killing it now too. So
yeah, I was just talking with him last night, actually, because I had actually hit him up. You know, he posted a story about what he was bringing to the Maker Syndicate, like a lot of knives. And I kind of like coming from like the background of like most of these knife shows that you go to, most of the handmade guys are bringing 5 to 10 knives at the most. And there's like a pretty similar offering quantity wise. And like, you see the show we're going to, I feel like for a 20 or 25 guy show, there's going to be more knives available at this show than like 100-person normal vendor regular knife show, just because most of it's, there's a lot of CNC guys, there's going to be a lot more quantity. And I kind of reached out to him and was like the actual quick math I did was like, hey, if there's like 600 people here coming to the show and each one has the budget to buy one knife, and you're bringing how many you are, and Oz is bringing how many he is, like you guys just soaked up like 30% of the budget for the show. You know what I mean? And then, you know, as he and I were kind of conversing about it, I realized like maybe the idea of a show where scarcity is not a problem is like actually enticing to people, because they don't pay all this money to fly or drive to a show and stay there to enter all these lottos and then not get drawn and then leave with nothing. Sure, they get the experience of meeting the makers and being able to handle the work and stuff, but like, would it be way cooler as like a customer to be able to walk into a show and be able to get almost any knife that you want from these makers that you like? Like, maybe I'm looking at this completely wrong. And like, maybe there's a place like the exclusivity, you know, in some ways drives demand, but on the same token, availability beats exclusivity every time, I think, because eventually these customers get frustrated that they're not going to win anything, and they'll just switch to what's available and they'll enjoy it because they have it in their hands, you know. And like, maybe there's a common ground to find between, and that's actually, I'm moving towards that right now. So like, I am trying very hard in the next like month or two to have weekly offerings available of my own work, to have like 5 to 10 transients a week that I'm able to offer via Lotto or to my email list or whatever to my people. And they're not going to be crazy fancy. They're just going to be a user configuration that just allows people to experience my work, which still leaves me room to make high-end, crazy custom stuff for shows or auctions or whatever I decide to do. But I'm kind of trying to take a page out of these other guys' book, which is like, why don't you just make more knives and let your business grow because people are experiencing your work, not because they can't get it and they're talking about it. So I appreciated the conversation he and I had. It kind of made me take a step back and like revisit my perspective a little bit. I actually hit him up and I was like, I actually feel like I'm kind of being a douchebag gatekeeper right now. That's like, this is your first show and you've been doing really well, but like, that's not how shows are done. And then like realizing that like, well, actually I talked to my wife about it. I was like, hey, I kind of had this conversation, and she was like, why do you even care about that? Like, why did you even talk to him about it? Like, well, he was talking about it in the story and I was just feeling away and I just had a conversation about it. But, you know, I just want to see everybody win. You know, that's kind of where my heart lies with it. I know that my 6 knives are going to sell no matter what I do. Your 15 knives are going to sell no matter what, because like you've been at this for a while and people are stoked on your work. But at the end of the day, everybody has the opportunity to do this however they want. And maybe we can learn something new from, you know, the way that other people do things. I get kind of closed-minded and I get tunnel vision sometimes that like my way is the right way. And I'm constantly having to take a step back and realizing that like there's a 1,000 ways to skin a cat and a lot of people that are doing stuff better than me. And what can I take away from like the success that they're having, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, it'd be cool. I'm excited to talk to everybody. Like I talked to most of the guys that are going, it seems like, but actually in person and handle some stuff and really it's different face to face.
No, for sure.
Just like on this with a camera, it's different than, texting obviously, or even just a quick phone call.
100%, man. It's weird. It's cool to be able to have these experiences from 3,000 miles apart, and that's the one thing I always garnered from these shows was, I always leave them stoked. I always leave them with like things that I can manipulate or change based on like seeing what works in other people's work and like, oh man, I never thought about that or this. That's definitely something I can improve, blah, blah, blah. And if you're sitting in a four-walled box all day, every day, just making your own stuff kind of cloistered, like you're probably going to be a bit more stagnant than you could be if you just went out into the world with your peers and experienced other people's offerings,
Yeah, for sure. So
well, cool, man. I mean, do you want to touch base on like what you got in the week ahead? I know I kind of mentioned that I'm pretty much out of the loop this week, and I know we're getting towards our hour cutoff, and you have something going on here shortly. So you have any thoughts on what your week looks like, or?
Yeah, I know there's a gardener somewhere I can hear. I'm trying to figure out. So I got to do a little bit more modeling on my lock side because I'm doing the inset lock. I've been charging my mouse this whole time. I'm going to share this again here real quick. So I've been going back and forth a bit on how I'm going to do the lock-ins, like the inset lock. So I still have some refinement to do up in this area. Never mind that. I know that's not machinable. So I had it short originally, like the lock relief is going to be somewhere around here. Being super long, obviously is not going to be the greatest lock wire, I don't think.
2.5 inches from the relief to the lock face is usually, I think, a pretty good number.
That's about where I have it too. I still have the original sketch with the dimensions and stuff there. My original lock relief was actually right in this radius right here.
Oh, I remember it well.
So this is really thick. So I think even if I'm going to put some pocketing in here to lighten it up. But so the thought behind this was basically I have a pivot going through here for obvious reasons. And then I'm using another pivot through this whole assembly in the back. This pocket was just quickly put in here. So it's not going to be all the way through to the pocket clip. But essentially what's going to happen is this screw is going to tighten on the pivot. It's going to tighten the pocket clip to this frame, and then it's going to squeeze into the other frame. So it's just going to sandwich that whole construction there. Now the frames don't need any threads. The blades obviously don't have any threads. I don't need to put threads in any parts on any of this stuff with this type of assembly. So I need to modify this a little bit so it doesn't go all the way through. But I was thinking of using the pivot to just capture the lock bar so that I don't have to put any screws in here. I don't want
just keeping the tolerance, the pocket tolerance, wall tolerance pretty tight so that there's no room for the lock bar to shuck at all.
Exactly. I got to keep it real tight back here and then relieve in a little bit of free thou so that this all floats in here and then stick the relief all the way up here. I'm thinking that if I make the lock bar maybe 1 or 2 thou thicker than the depth of this pocket, when I sandwich the whole thing, it should bind it in place as well as being snug.
The only thing I would consider is that like if your relief is an inch further forward, it's going to bend at the relief, but it's still going to bend a bit going further backwards. I want to touch the screen so people can see me, but I can't, it's like you're still going to have like an inch behind the relief before it gets captured between the integrated backspacer where it can still bend a little bit. It's not like it's going to just stay still there. I don't know if you need to do you have to have one screw that's like right behind where the relief is cut to make sure that it only bends, but it's internal, so you wouldn't see it. You'd have a counterbore or whatever in the liner itself, and then you probably have enough meat to tap the frame, but
it's just so thin right here. Like this section right here is only 50 thou.
Oh yeah. So how thick are you going to make your liners?
It's going to be at the relief. It's going to be about 40 thou. And then the rest of the liner, I think I have enough room to do like 50 or 60 thou. This has only got 50 right here. There's another 10 thou that I could use a little bit where the gap is from the bearing. Or I could just go deeper with this pocket too. The only reason I don't want to go any deeper is because I don't want to mess with this thin section.
You already have your lead in hitting that sharp edge, and you don't
want
to break
there. And I don't even have a chamfer or any edge breaks right there. So
you don't have a radius on the bottom of the lead in or a chamfer on the bottom of the pocket.
Yeah, this pocket's not finalized. So right here, it's about 50 thou. I could make it thicker in the back and then relieve just the front of it. So it's only thin where the actual section that pops out for your thumb is, and then the rest of it's thicker. But I think with how the lock bar is going to bend up in the front, it's going to actually be bent. It's going to be bent up, at the relief and then captured way back here. The blade's going to push it down. It's going to contact that, and it should keep the rest of it back down. It's not like the whole thing's going to be trying to lift up. If anything, it's going to be trying to push the middle down.
I gotta be honest with you. You may not even have to put a relief if it's only 50 thousandths.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've just found with these subliners that I'm doing, my relief is like 43 thousandths.
Yeah, and
it's like a soft enough lock release that like if it was just 50 because the whole thing is 50, I bet you that you wouldn't even have to relieve it.
Yeah, probably not. The only reason I would want to relieve it is just to have a focused bend point. If anything, but yeah, like you said, it may not even be necessary. It's going to get much thicker back here. This whole section back here, at least with how it's drawn right now, there's like 140 thou. So it's going to get thicker as it goes. I was even thinking of possibly even just surfacing the whole lock bar to where it matches all of this.
Yeah, that would look cool. A little bit extra work though, and like weird work holding for a thin part,
Yeah, that's the only thing. If I do this side, you can see like how it's all surfaced inside. So this whole area is essentially just an offset of the edge, or the primary, and then this section is just the edge, and then I threw a radius here for the tool. I need to finalize some of this detail up here, but this is essentially what the inside of the integrals look like, the welded ones that I did.
Yep.
It was essentially exactly the same, but I added a big pocket in here. I don't even know how that happened, but that actually worked out really well.
Does any part of you, just for weight purposes, like want to eliminate that offset surface all the way up until where it encapsulates the blade in the closed position just for weight reasons?
Yeah, so that's how the relief was. That's how the relief was on the integrals. This whole entire section was pocketed out all the way up until like 100 thou wall right here. So it went almost up to this edge. And that would actually, if I got rid of this edge right here, then I would be able to close it before it's sharpened.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. So there's a few things. I'm going to try and finalize some of these details, but I definitely need to start cutting some more parts. So I might just work on and focus on blades this week because the check fixture is done. I got to make the other actual fixture to hold the blades. And I think while I'm doing that, I can finalize all the details on the frame design.
Yeah, I mean, just get the cycle. If that's where most of your attention needs to lie, machine running, and then those blades you probably have like 20 or 25 minutes, 30 minutes a piece by the time you cut everything to like good enough cycle time to really get into the CAD and finalize it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this would probably only take me a couple hours to really nail and dial all this stuff in, fix some of this, and add the pockets. But I don't really want to just have it sitting here. I mean, we talked about, trying not to just run stuff just to run stuff, but I have stuff here that needs to run. So I might as well
just run it.
Yeah. Probably blades this week. Maybe do that and then do the CAD work on this. I think that would be a good plan because I don't want to do the next op on the pocket clips yet because I got to make soft jaws and do that stuff. So I'm probably going to wait until I finish all the op ones on the frames and then just do soft jaw work for a week or so, finish all the outside because there's nothing critical on the outside of the frames. All this is really just surfacing.
It's just aesthetic shit.
Yep. That's all it is. And all the tool paths are already dialed from the one that I sent you.
Perfect, man.
So really good. So
it sounds like you got a good week ahead of you. I mean, I think I'm excited to see these things come to fruition. I know that I'm gonna be walking over to your table and buying one of those sons of guns. So make sure you got at least one good one there for me.
I know I'm thinking about that too because I don't know how all the show stuff works. Somebody mentioned, oh yeah, there's gonna be awards and everything, and so I don't know if there's going to be any at this show. I would imagine if they are, it's probably going to be before the show opens. They're going to probably go through and do all that stuff. I don't know how
it's tough to say. Sometimes you like a customer will buy a knife and you'll say, hey, I want to enter this in the awards portion of the show. Judging is like at 5 o'clock. Can I hang on to it and then give it to you when the show's over or whatever? I don't know how Oz will do it. I mean, it makes probably the most sense to me to have it done ahead of time. But I mean, who knows how they're going to handle it.
Yeah, because I think there's going to be like an hour or so where everybody can kind of mingle before the doors open.
Yeah, I mean, that's nice because you want an hour or 2 hours to be able to like get your table set up and like, you know, dick around and chit chat with your buddies and all that stuff. So
yeah, it sounded like some of that was even so that we can just get stuff from each other too. So it should be cool. I'm really excited for the show. I got to buy my ticket this week. Flights from here are like $340 or something.
That's not bad at all.
And that's from Santa Ana Airport, John Wayne, straight into Indy.
Wow,
so
straight up.
That airport's way better than LAX. You can get from your car to your gate in like 5 minutes.
Really?
So it's much better than LAX. So I'm going to probably just do that. I got to figure out what I'm going to do for a room. I got to get my room still. Joe's going to go too. It sounds like. Maybe
really?
Joe and I go in and crash. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. I kind of wish I didn't know that so that I could like surprised as hell. It'd be great to see him.
That would be cool. Yeah, maybe we'll just get a room together too or something, try and save some costs. So
yeah, like I said, I'm crashing with Logan, or else I would just get an Airbnb with you guys. But if you do decide to like if you guys do look for Airbnbs or anything and you had an extra room you're trying to fill, because my wife is coming, which I mean staying with Logan is great, but I think he's like 30 or 35 minutes away. And so I would be willing to jump on, you know, grabbing an Airbnb with you guys if there was an extra spot. So just keep me in the loop.
I'll look into that. Yeah, I'll check. I'll probably check today on that and let you know. Yeah, my wife was going to come too, but we got the kids. So she doesn't want to leave the kids for a couple days or 2-3 days. So probably
totally understand that, man.
Out and bum it. So anyways, yeah, it's getting to that point right now. I think we got a pretty solid week coming up. I know you're going to be out, but
I'm jealous of you, man. I got so much stuff that I want to be doing, which is like I appreciate getting out and spreading my wings and seeing my people. But typically after like 24 to 36 hours of that, I am like itching to get back into work. And so like I honestly have to like really mentally prepare myself to like cut loose for 3 days, because if I don't, like that anxiety sets in and like I will not have a good time. So as long as I can get my shit done today and get it shipped out and like, you know, sign off on it, and like I'll find a way to be okay with it. But it's definitely hard to disconnect.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds fun though.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Well, cool. I appreciate the conversation as always, guys. We appreciate you guys listening. It's hard to believe that we've already got 3 of these episodes under our belt. I think it's starting to feel a bit more natural. I'm doing a better job of waiting for you to finish talking before talking over you, as my wife would say. I know I got a little long. Yeah, she'll call me out. You know, she did say there was like a little, she could hear a hum in my audio, which maybe I didn't hear it until she had it like in her van. I don't know if it's her van speakers, maybe, but I did hear a little bit of interference on my end, so I don't know if that is the case. But you're so neurotic about it that I feel like you would have noticed it if it was something.
I can't hear anything. I think StreamYard's probably pulling some out. If you're listening to like your own audio on your own recording, then it might hear it. But if you're just playing it back, I can't really hear anything. So
cool.
Yeah, audio is really good. We get some good feedback on that, so that's cool. I got to figure out I got to get some good like plug-in lights and do that. But yeah, it's way more natural for sure. I think it's good.
Sweet, man. So, well, I appreciate you. And guys, again, thanks for listening. Look forward to catching up with you next week. And as always, try and stay on task and kick ass this week, bro.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks, dude. Later.
Take care, homie.